As vinyl variant collecting has gotten more and more popular over the years, and the medium has slowly but surely been revived, artists have been taking advantage of that fact by releasing interesting and limited editions of their albums and singles. Taylor is of course no exception, from her original Record Store Day releases to her Target exclusive red variants, and now her many wonderful colourful editions. Vinyl has become a staple in many fans' collections. Today we're going to be exploring Taylor's vinyl catalogue from her standard editions right through to her very rare gems. Welcome to Swiftly Spoken, a fan-made Taylor Swift podcast in which we break down her lyrics, deep dive into full album retrospectives, and theorise about what may be coming next. As always, we're your hosts Cameron and Lisa, and this week we're going to be going through Taylor Swift's vinyl for each and every era, speaking about interesting tracks and our favourite releases. So this episode has kind of come about to celebrate the Record Store Day release that Taylor is about to release for Record Store Day, which is a 7-inch vinyl single of Fortnight, and basically we thought that it would be really cool to go back through Taylor's entire discography and look at all the very interesting and unique versions of a variety of Taylor albums and singles that has been released. But before we get into that, I just want to give a couple disclaimers. So, as I'm sure you're aware, vinyl variant collecting, or even if you're not aware, then we'll make you aware, but vinyl variant collecting is like a minefield in itself. There's so many different versions, and that ranges from like officially released versions to ones that are pressed in different pressing plants that might have a slight colour difference. So I don't know, if it was pressed in the Czech Republic, it might be a darker shade of blue. If it was pressed in France, it might be a slightly lighter shade. So therefore it means that there's lots of like nuance in terms of different variants, different versions, because there might only be 2 versions, but within one of those versions there's 5 different versions because of the way it was pressed and the different colour. So to kind of slim that all down a little bit and make this list more clear and concise, we're not going to be counting every single colour variant as a different variant unless it was promoted that way. Also, any different pressings from different countries we're also not going to be including. We will mention, however, we will not be running through every single different one, and as ever we're going to be sticking to Taylor's main discography, so not any other artist's album that Taylor is featured on, or compilations or movie soundtracks. So things like Gracie Abrams' recent album, the Hannah Montana soundtrack, the Hunger Games soundtrack, Where the Crawdad Sings soundtrack, etc, etc, we will not be including, but could potentially do an episode on later down the line, because there's some really cool variants of that, and is often an area of Taylor's kind of collecting world and variant and vinyl collecting that's not really explored, because it's again a bit of a minefield in itself and kind of dips into different other artists' fan bases and catalogues. That is massive, so we won't be including that. And also, as we're sticking to Taylor's main discography, that means we're sticking to only official releases. There's lots of very, very cool unofficial vinyl that I myself have in my collection, and as cool as they are, again, that's also a massive minefield, so we're going to be sticking to officially released ones, and that includes releases like Beautiful Eyes and Speak Now World Tour Live that have not officially been pressed on vinyl, however there is unofficial versions of. We'll not be including things like that. So yeah, sticking to Taylor's main discography.
But as you said, Cameron, if you guys are interested in us exploring that other side of Taylor Swift vinyl, not like the official ones, other artist discography, and also those unofficial releases, some of the interesting ones, because obviously that could never be catalogued in its entirety, as this is absolutely crazy. If you guys are interested in that, then let us know, because we would be really interested as well to present a few of them that I know, Cameron, you have collected a lot of fun ones that we could go over. So what we're going to be doing is, as always, going chronologically through all of Taylor's albums, including the Taylor's versions as well. We'll basically be talking about the different vinyl that exist for that album, or the singles from that album, what they look like, if we like them, and also talking about if it contains anything exclusive on it and how rare it is, and which are our favourites, basically.
So obviously starting off with Debut, so unlike later albums, Debut is quite easy in terms of the main album. There's basically a standard black and a Record Store Day release, which is this gorgeous kind of like blue. Within that, however, there are different presses of that. There's a US and EU. As we're not kind of including that, technically it's just standard black and the gorgeous Record Store Day blue. So yeah, so the Record Store Day version was released in 2018 alongside a couple others, which was Fearless in 1989, but we'll get into those. So yeah, so both the black and the Record Store Day vinyl have the international edition track list of Taylor's debut album, which includes all the 15 tracks. But moving on from the main album and into singles, Debut has some really, really cool 7-inch singles, which include Tim McGraw, Pitch to Burn, Teardrops on My Guitar, Should Have Said No, and Our Song. And all bar Should Have Said No were released in like 2019. Should Have Said No was 2020. And these are really, really cool. I absolutely love these. All of them contain obviously the single on the front and then like a live version of the track on the B-side. Some of them have like different colours, so Tim McGraw is just standard black. Picture to Burn is like this gorgeous kind of smoky grey. Teardrops on My Guitar is this like kind of see-through blue, greeny colour. And then Should Have Said No is this gorgeous white. And then Our Song is this kind of pinky purple. And when these were released, there was a bit of controversy. I can't remember if you remember, Lisa, but I think Tim McGraw was like announced prior, because it was 2019. Like, I think Tim McGraw was announced prior to, Taylor had left Big Machine.
Yes.
But it was announced prior to like the kind of public fallout of the selling of the masters and like all the big drama around all of that. And then I think when it was finally, I think then literally like a week after all the pre-orders went up
exactly. It was basically, it began around the end of summer, which is basically when all of that was going on. The masters have been sold. Obviously Big Machine looked very sketchy to be doing this at the same time as everything else was going on. It also kind of like created quite a divide on people's opinions whether they should buy them or not, because obviously it's an amazing collector's piece. Like, to be able to finally have those debut singles on a little 7-inch vinyl is so cool, and they look really good as well. But a lot of people weren't very happy with it because, again, obviously this wasn't a release basically sanctioned by Taylor. It was Big Machine.
Yeah, there was a lot of kind of debate whether this was agreed by Taylor or not. But she's never really publicly spoke about them at all.
No,
I guess
Taylor Nation didn't promote.
No, Taylor Nation didn't promote. It was all very Big Machine.
Exactly.
And the first few, especially Tim McGraw and Teardrops on My Guitar, were quite promoted, and then after that,
they were just dropped.
Like very casually dropped. Yeah, and just appearing in all sorts of places. Sometimes like Walmart had them. It was very often like sold on eBay. Like they were all very kind of done slightly on the sly. But yeah, Taylor Nation never promoted it. Taylor herself never mentioned it. I guess she had kind of bigger fish to fry at that time when she was fighting the main battle with owning her masters and what to do with that. So I guess some silly little 7-inch single was not really an issue. Because of that, it does mean that some of them are more limited than others and a bit harder to find than others. And because fans didn't really snatch them up at the time, there's also not as many in circulation as, you know, there are nowadays of certain singles. However, alongside these, there's actually some really, really cool jukebox singles that are from around 2007, which are probably, in my eyes, some of the coolest things to own. Not the best looking things to own, because they are very boring. They're just like a standard black 7-inch vinyl with just like a bog standard print of Taylor Swift and the song name. But there were these jukebox singles that were included in jukeboxes that have just kind of been sold on, and again are quite hard to find. So these from debut include Teardrops on My Guitar, Should Have Said No, and Pitch to Burn. And then on the B-side they include like some other very random country songs. I have two of them myself. I have the Should Have Said No and Pitch to Burn one, and the songs on the B-sides are rogue. But they are really, really unique, and personally for me, I think one of the coolest like little gems, because, you know, these would have been in bars and in jukeboxes and people would have been able to play them. So to kind of have them is quite cool. And on them they say like, this is exclusively for jukebox use only.
Oh, right. Okay.
And often they get, they're very, very cool. And often they kind of get left off of lists when people kind of talk about Taylor vinyl, because technically they're not official releases.
That was my next question. Like, is it really official?
But it is by Big Machine.
Exactly, officially made by her company to give for a very specific, which we're going to see other types of very specific promotional vinyl as we go on. So I can understand from that point of view how they could be included in a list like this. So yeah, that's such an interesting, such a different kind of piece of a collector's piece, really. Yeah,
it's almost like a bit of history, really. No, I really, really love them. And my Pitch to Burn one also comes with like the little piece of paper that would have been in the jukebox that people would have known the number or button to click or something, which is really, really cool. As we're kind of going through these, personally, out of the kind of debut vinyl that's available, the most gorgeous one is obviously, in terms of standard album, is that Record Store Day.
Oh, 100%.
Like, that's one of my favourite vinyl.
It's beautiful.
It's so
the
gorgeous.
Exact shade of like bluey colour that debut is in my head, like that minty almost, and it's just perfect for debut. It really is.
It's so gorgeous. Unfortunately, nowadays resale price, I was so lucky to purchase mine for retail at the time and on the day of release, but resale price, these are worth thousands, unfortunately, now, so they are really, really, really hard to come by.
Yeah.
But if you do come by any of the 7-inch singles, again, I think those Big Machine release ones, again, are quite hard to come by, but all of those are a really, really cool thing to have if you do stumble across them. And the jukebox ones, again, even harder to find and probably just as expensive, but those are very unique, and I would definitely recommend those if you do stumble across one. But no, Debut has some really, really cool releases.
Next up we have Fearless, and for Fearless it kind of follows in the similar steps of Debut, and that's the pattern we're going to see for the next few albums. But basically we obviously have a standard edition vinyl, which again is just a black vinyl, and then on the other hand we have the same Record Store Day release, same year, and it's like there's a crystal clear and there's like a metallic gold vinyl. It's beautiful. Again, this is for me, like the original Fearless vinyl, you know what I mean? Like, it really encapsulates the idea that I have, like the image of Fearless in my mind. In both cases, it's the platinum edition of Fearless that we can find. As for singles, we don't have any, but we do have another one of those very interesting jukebox singles, which in this case is for Love Story.
So next is Speak Now, and similar pattern to the first two albums. We have the standard black and then a Record Store Day pressing. Those standard black versions of Taylor's first 5 Big Machine albums were all released in like 2016, and this was the first time any of Taylor's albums were pressed on vinyl, and it was very, very cool. It was kind of when vinyl was starting to kind of pick up. That was released then, and similarly the Record Store Day version was actually part of a Black Friday release in 2018, and even though we're not kind of mentioning different versions, this one interestingly has the most difference between the US and the EU, even though technically it's only 2, Black Standard and Record Store Day. The US one is this very crystal clear, whereas the EU is a very muddy brown, so there is definitely a difference between them, but other than that it is purely just the standard black and the Record Store Day, and both of these versions are the standard edition of Speak Now with 14 tracks.
Next up we have Red, and again along the same lines we have that standard black edition, and then we also have the Record Store Day, and following in Speak Now's footsteps, it was also released for Black Friday, and in this case the colour is crystal clear for the red vinyl. In both cases it's the standard album track list, again the 16 tracks. But here is where Red differs, because we are now introducing a new, very rare, and I love this edition so much. Like, this is a holy grail for collectors. In fact, we've spoken about this edition before. We spoke about it in one of our episodes of like rare and really interesting editions of Taylor albums, CDs. It was a bit of everything in this one. Here we're just concentrating on vinyl. But this one is the ACM for Your Consideration vinyl.
Yeah, no, it is definitely one of the coolest versions, and it's like for the American Country Music Awards, often to encourage when artists, and it happens a lot with the Emmys and all sorts of different award categories, but award ceremonies, but whenever someone is nominated for something and up for an award, sometimes they'll send like promo packages to the voters where it'll basically be a bit of a sweetener to kind of encourage them to vote for that album, and also give them something where they can then maybe listen to it and, I don't know, feel a bit more appreciative. But this was basically a promotional item that was given to ACM voters, and it included obviously the vinyl, which was this gorgeous red vinyl with a really cool slipcase that had like a slightly different cover that slid over the standard cover, but basically said that Taylor painted the world red, and basically that you needed to vote for her for these awards and whatever. And then it also came with some like other interesting items, like some little like playing cards. It's like kind of weird like card game, and then the Red Tour book, and also like this really cool box. It basically came with some really cool kind of like paper items alongside the vinyl, and it's very, very hard to find. And unfortunately now there's a lot of fakes on the market, so you have to be very, very careful. But it is a gorgeous item, and definitely probably the most desirable Taylor vinyl I think out there. This is like a holy grail amongst vinyl collectors and non-vinyl collectors. It's kind of very, very sought after because there is such a limited run of them, and as the years go on and less and less, someone might lose one or gets damaged or something, less are around and less are being sold, because obviously once people have them they don't really want to give them away, and if they are, they're giving them away for a lot of money. It's probably the most expensive on the list.
I can understand why, and again it's not really an official release because because it wasn't released to the public, but it is officially, you know, made by Taylor and her team for a very specific reason. And God, that color is just absolutely perfect. I love in vinyl is when we do get like a colorful or interesting design. I think for me that's like the most like fun thing about it, and I love it when it really represents the album well. And in this case, this one, which is the rarest, is also for me the most representative of that time.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, of that Red album. Like the fact that I guess because there had been this ACM version, that's why the Black Friday pressing of Red was on clear. But it just needed to be on red, you know?
It really did.
The fact we had to wait until, and we'll get into the Taylor's version later, but the fact we had to wait until Taylor's version to actually then get a red vinyl, and that wasn't even the standard, you know?
No.
It's still mad that we had to wait that long to get what it really deserved, which is this gorgeous red colour. So next on the list is obviously 1989, and 1989 has a couple of interesting versions. So there's obviously the standard black, and this is just the standard edition of 1989 with 13 tracks. But even though we are not kind of supposed to be going through the different pressing versions, there's actually an international version of this against like the American edition. So the American edition cover is very different, as it has TS on the American version, whereas the international has Taylor Swift, and this was the same across CDs as well. I guess because internationally this might have been, for some people, Taylor's like massive breakout international pop record, and TS might have not been, like, international audience might not have instantly thought about Taylor back then in 2014, so there was a slight difference in covers, so hence the difference there. So there's two versions of the standard black, even though both are standard. It just depends where you buy them, if you're buying them in the States or internationally. But alongside that, there's also then the Record Store Day, which was released alongside Debut and Fearless back in 2018, and this is this gorgeous pink pressing of 1989, and again I think really fits 1989. I remember lots of people being like, pink? Oh, that's not really 1989. And even now, 1989 is associated with blue. But at the time, I think pink and blue were kind of quite iconic for 1989 in the tour.
Yeah, I agree.
So at the time, it definitely made sense. And this one, I have all the Record Store Days bar the 1989, and I regret it to this day not buying it.
Yeah.
Because it is so gorgeous, this pressing, and again, unbelievably expensive resale now.
Next up, of course, is Reputation, and for Reputation we have the standard, which is a picture disc. So instead of just being like a random colour, we actually have 4 different kind of sides, so 4 different pictures of Taylor, all from that Reputation photo shoot. The main one, of course, is the album artwork, and then we also have her like with her hands on her face, her to the side, and then her just like looking in front. Amazing pictures, to be honest, to choose. Like some really iconic Reputation looks there. Yeah, a departure from the other 5 standards, which were all just black. Now we have firstly her release that came alongside Reputation, really. The only other edition, like officially released, of Reputation on vinyl is this orange version, which was an exclusive for the FYE stores in the United States, which are like entertainment stores. It's very different, and again, Reputation is one that you wouldn't expect to have like a random colour like orange, in a way that kind of like 1989, some people think pink is a bit weird, maybe some people might think orange is weird, but I always, in my head, orange really goes with Ready For It, I think, because of just like the lyrics and stuff.
The photo shoot,
it was a bit orange as well.
It's all very orange,
Yeah, so this one is quite limited, so very difficult.
Very hard to find
nowadays. Yeah.
And again, I think there's lots of kind of fakes on the market, and this one out of the 2 I think is really cool.
Oh, this one is definitely my favourite out of the 2, but
personally, I think the standard with the picture disc is really unique, and it's not something we have ever had from just the standard version of a Taylor album,
right,
before or since.
No,
like having a picture disc across 4 discs is gorgeous pictures. It's also actually quite good quality, whereas often picture discs sometimes lack in quality in terms of sound, just because of the way they're pressed.
Exactly.
But I think this one, for me, I've always really loved the picture disc version of Reputation, and I hope that we get something similar for potential Taylor's version, because I was really impressed by it, and because the FYE, as cool as it is a bit random. It was definitely before Taylor had locked and loaded that Target contract.
Yes.
We'll get into, because it was very random, but it's still very cool. So next is Lover, and what's interesting here is obviously Taylor is now with Republic Records, and there is definitely, I think at this time, vinyl had definitely had its massive resurgence and was very popular, so artists were definitely leaning into that. But I think also Republic were very happy and open, and maybe had the resources to be able to press lots of stuff. So this is when it all gets a bit wild.
Yes.
But Lover, the standard edition, again, following Reputation, was a really, really cool standard edition because the standard edition is a pink and blue vinyl, which I think perfectly fits Lover.
Love it for Lover. Love it. It's absolutely stunning.
I love this. Yes, it's so gorgeous, and I really like it when cool editions of albums are accessible to fans and not, locked behind record store days, which are very stressful sometimes to do, or, online limited releases where they get snapped up in seconds. It's quite nice that these are available, and I love this version. However, very recently, only in the last couple of years or so, a black edition of Lover was released. Again, not promoted by Taylor or Taylor Nation, it was just kind of appeared very randomly, which was interesting because that was not released upon Lover's initial release and the vinyl release. However, that's definitely a cool edition. Personally, I prefer the pink and blue because I think it's a lot cooler.
100%.
But in terms of the standard Lover album, it is purely just those two versions, the pink and blue and the black, and they're just both the standard edition of Lover with 18 tracks. However, it was a very interesting time to be a Taylor fan, and
oh god,
Republic Records went wild with the releases for me. So there was some picture discs and 7-inches, so I'll get into those now. So starting off with the 12-inch picture discs, there was a picture of Taylor kind of spreading her arms with like a fringe denim jacket, and that was one side, and the other side was a picture of her and Brendan Urie, and that was just the Me single, both sides just play Me. Alongside that, they also released a live rehearsal edition of Me, very random for the billboards, to promote Me in the hopes to kind of boost sales and push it towards number one. Unfortunately, it didn't work, but there is a picture disc for that, which is this very gorgeous picture of Taylor kind of pushing her hair back with like a horse earring, and that features the live rehearsal edition of Me with Brendan Urie. So there's the picture disc with the standard Me and picture disc with the rehearsal live Me. Then there is 5 Me 7-inch singles with different covers. So there's 4 that are the standard Me, so just the studio version, and there's a cover of her and Brendan Urie, one of her with like this kind of flower neck thing, the standard cover of Me, and again one of her and the fringe denim jacket, and they all again just include the standard, a single version of Me, the one with Spelling is Fun, and alongside that there's then a 7-inch of the Me rehearsal live from Billboard. So there's 5 technically, 4 that have Me, 1 that has the live Billboard. So there's a lot of Me singles, and I remember at the time feeling very overwhelmed.
Yeah, there's a lot
about what
going
to buy.
on. Yeah.
And I purchased the picture disc with her in the fringe because I just thought the image was really cool, and then I purchased the cover with her and the weird kind of rose neck thing.
Yes, yeah.
And the stars behind her, because I thought that was quite a nice cover. All of these I think are quite hard to find now.
Right.
I don't often see them coming up. I think certain covers are more popular than others. I definitely know that I think the Billboard probably rehearsal version is probably the hardest to find because
yes,
I
and it's
think
the
at
most
that point
interesting
we've all been
version.
Oversaturated.
Yeah. I do think it's the most interesting version though out of all of these Lover ones, all these Me singles that we've spoken about, but just because of how different it is to have a random rehearsal audio that we wouldn't have heard any other way. So I do like that one quite a lot because it's just a fun, different. That's what I like about releases, that we have something fun and different.
When they're unique, yeah definitely. And there was also a CD singles of these as well.
Yes,
so I have the CD single. So if you're wanting that, there are definitely more accessible ways. Again, the CD unfortunately is probably ridiculous resale prices, but yeah, no, it was definitely an interesting time. The Me, if you're around at the Me kind of single release, it was just wild. And this was the first time really that we'd kind of been bombarded with variants of Taylor stuff. It had often been quite casual. We'd had like the standard black in 2016 and then a record store day in 2018, whereas the Me kind of single was like, here's 5 versions of this, 2 of this. So it was definitely a lot, but lots of really cool ones to pick from. But more recently, also had another really cool edition of Lover, which is the Lover Live from Paris. And basically this album is a live recording of Taylor's concert, Paris, the City of Lover concert, which was a concert in 2019 that Taylor did. Very, very exclusive concert. How I would have loved to have gone to it.
Wow, yeah.
It was in a very small venue. It was really very, very cool. Then the audios for it were released in 2020 just on streaming, and they were just kind of like individual singles for the Lover Live tracks. However, recently it's been pressed on this gorgeous heart-shaped vinyl, one that's kind of this pink and blue, and it was snapped up instantly. It has 8 tracks, and that original pressing went like wildfire, and then resale has been absolutely bonkers for it. It's been, again, a very, very highly desirable item. However, literally this year, a couple of weeks/months ago.
Yeah, not very long ago.
It was repressed.
It was a random day as well, really. Just suddenly. Yeah. And I remember I messaged you, like, oh my God, Cameron.
You messaged me, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I snatched it up. And this version is ever so slightly different to the original, because rather than being pink, like a pinky purple, one of them is like a pink with yellow swirls, and then rather than being like a kind of baby blue, it's blue with kind of pink swirls. So it's definitely different from the original, and if you were lucky enough to snap it up, I would definitely do so. If you weren't, I wouldn't pay those resale prices, because I do think they could potentially press it again. The demand for it was mad, and when the demand is that high nowadays, Taylor Nation kind of do feed into that and will meet that demand by hopefully pressing some more. So if you did get it, then congratulations, because it's a gorgeous pressing. Like, again, we've never had like a shaped vinyl from Taylor.
Again, so I love the gimmicky things. They really they've got me wrapped around their little finger when they do things like that. But I just think it's so beautiful. Yes. It fits the Lover aesthetic so well. Love those releases. Yeah, definitely.
And obviously released within the Lover era is also Christmas Tree Farm. And interestingly, a year or so after the release of Christmas Tree Farm, Taylor's team released a picture disc, 12-inch picture disc of the Christmas Tree Farm single, and this basically included on the A side just the standard studio version of Christmas Tree Farm, and on the B side was Christmas Tree Farm live from Jingle Bell Ball 2019. And it was quite a random release at the time, and it has only been available, I believe, once since. I believe last year it was also available, but in quite short and low quantities, and is definitely very sought after, especially around Christmas, and is a really, really cool item, because again, this is the only way that you can listen to Christmas Tree Farm officially, physically, as there was no CD single as of yet released. So it's definitely a really, really cool one to get, and definitely one of my favourites. I definitely give it a spin every year, but I think again, unfortunately due to resale, is very, very pricey.
So next up we have Folklore, and here is where things get a little bit out of hand. I can't lie.
Definitely.
CD-wise...
I remember Folklore announce was wild, wasn't it?
Yeah.
8 versions. It was like, what the hell?
Yeah, CD-wise, vinyl-wise, like Cameron just said, 8 versions, but then there's more, but still. So we had the Betty's Garden, Clandestine Meetings, Hide and Seek, In the Trees, In the Weeds, Meet Me Behind Them All, Running Like Water, and Stolen Lullabies. And all of these were different colours, different shades of a couple of greens, brown, a couple like mauves, like a very light blue, whitey grey ones as well. So yeah, a lot going on. But from all of these, Cameron, which was your favourite?
So my favourite, so I have 3 of them. I have the In the Trees, Betty's Garden, and Hide and Seek. Personally, my favourite is the Betty's Garden cover. I really love that pink. I think it quite suits that cover of her sat in the grass, kind of looking up. Like, it looks like she's kind of sat on, like, she's sat in her dress in the weeds. And also I really loved, because each version, along with the CDs, had different pictures from the photo shoot. So inside on the gatefold and in the kind of sleeves, and then in the CD booklet there was different pictures. And personally, my favourite pictures are from the Betty's Garden one, so I was really happy to get that version. But I do really, really like the Stolen Lullabies version of her with the kind of space buns and the like mint green colour. I think that's really, really gorgeous.
I think that one really, really suits Folklore as well. Some of these colours really suit. That one is one that I like. The Running Like Water, which is like a silvery colour, I think is very Folklore as well. Even the Meet Me Behind Them All grey one, they're very Folklore for me.
Yeah, no, I think they really did pick the colours well. And interestingly, again, we're kind of not delving into all the different versions, but there was kind of different ones pressed, and the ones that were kind of sold on her American store, when you held them up to the light, they actually had like a marbled effect, whereas the ones internationally in the UK were like totally opaque. Like when you held them up, there was no kind of pressing. And I was lucky enough to get the American edition of the Betty's Garden one, so when I held it up, it's this gorgeous marble. So I'm really happy I've got one of those, because they are really, really cool and really unique. But yeah, I think it was very overwhelming at the time, and I think these are very hard to find, and sometimes randomly appear on Taylor's store. Like randomly one of them will appear for a very short period of time.
Right.
But I think they're very, very highly desirable now, because Folklore has kind of become this kind of
what it is,
massive album. But then there's also a very, very ugly red.
Yes. We
version.
also have the Meet Me Behind Them All red Target exclusive version, no, this is not it. This is not it for me.
No, unfortunately, it set a trend.
It did, a very bad one.
For a little bit too long.
Yeah, but so because it is a Target exclusive, obviously Target, their colour is red. This is something that happened with, not for vinyl, of course, but in CD wise, Taylor had collaborated with them before, like, for example, the deluxe edition of Speak Now is all very much red because that was like the Target exclusivity of it all.
Colour.
Yeah. So Target is red, their colour is red, their logo is red, and thus the vinyl is also this shade of red, which for folklore especially is so jarring to see. But yeah, here it is. Meet me behind them all, the red vinyl edition. So then for folklore, we have some 7-inch singles and some 12-inch singles.
These are really, really cool, the folklore singles. So they're basically all for Cardigan, bar a Record Store Day one, which we'll get into in a minute. But for Cardigan, the standard version of Cardigan, there's a 12-inch gold single, which includes the Cardigan studio version, and on the B-side, a really, really cool demo voice memo version of Cardigan that Taylor sent to Aaron. So there's the 12-inch of that. There's also a 7-inch, almost identical, similar colour, just 7 inches rather than 12. It has the same track list on A and B. And then there's also a really, really cool picture disc for Cardigan as well, which has the same track list, Cardigan on side A and that gorgeous voice memo on side B. Alongside that, there was alternate, similarly with Me, where we had the standard version of Me and then the Billboard rehearsal edition. Cardigan also had like an alt single where it was the Cabin in the Candlelight, and that had a 12-inch single and a 7-inch single. And the A-side on the Cabin in the Candlelight version was Cardigan Cabin in the Candlelight, and the B-side was the standard edition of Cardigan. And then finally, 2022, there was a 7-inch single released for Record Store Day when Taylor was the Record Store Day ambassador, which was released for The Lakes, and that included The Lakes standard edition on side A, and on side B, The Lakes original version, which was kind of more orchestral. And these were really, really, really actually quite limited and quite hard to come by at the time and go for a lot of money nowadays. And it's very cool, very random, considering at that time we were
2022,
a couple of albums. Yeah, we were like away from folklore. It was quite a random kind of release, but still very, very cool. And if you are able to get hold of those Cardigan singles, and there is also CD singles of Cardigan and Cardigan Cabin in the Candlelight, but that voice memo, even if you can't get hold of the single or vinyl, but that voice memo is so gorgeous, and I often play that more than I play the actual Cardigan when I listen
it's
to
such a good one. It's one that
vinyl singles.
Also, as you know, if you've listened to us ever before, and if you haven't, we'll let you know, we are fans of alternate lyrics, and that one has such good ones as well. So
yes, it's so good. And yeah, no, definitely, if you have never heard it, then definitely check it out on YouTube, because it's very, very cool.
It really is.
And these are all really, really cool. And like I said, unfortunately, I keep saying the same thing, but I think resale prices for these are quite high.
Yeah. Finally, for the folklore era, this album is the one. Like, this is the only vinyl that I have actually like regretted like not being able to have physically, because all of the other ones basically they do come alongside, most of them, a CD release, so there's no problems there. Like if you're a CD collector, you're all good. But the folklore, the Long Pond studio sessions, it was for Record Store Day this time in 2023, and it's absolutely amazing. It obviously is the folklore Long Pond studio sessions track list, so it's the one that you would hear on Disney. Obviously it was exclusively available to watch on Disney, but this is the only physical way that you could official that you could listen to this. And it's really, really, I mean, it has pictures from the recording that that you can watch, and of course it is a very exclusive edition, so again, prices probably high.
Very high, yeah. And it's really gorgeous because the cover's embossed and it feels very high quality.
It does look really nice as well.
And it was weird because this was obviously, when this was announced, it was also announced alongside that original version of The Love Alive from Paris. But The Love Alive from Paris was a store exclusive, whereas the Record Store Day Folklore was a Record Store Day exclusive. And I remember at the time the panic of people trying to get this, but thankfully there was a lot of pressings of this.
That's the only good thing.
And more Yes, thankfully, so it was quite easy to get, and I was very happy when I was able to pick it up. And more recently, there has been a Chinese version pressed that has also been available, so lots of people have been kind of opting to buy that one. Can't afford resale prices or unfortunately missed out on it. So definitely, if you are interested in getting it, definitely try and see if you can source that Chinese edition, because hopefully prices are a little lower than resale prices for that original Record Store Day version. But this is, definitely out of the folklore ones, I feel like this is the one to have, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
So next we have obviously Evermore, and Evermore weirdly does not follow the same format of folklore and has a very, very limited run of editions. And this one is one of the ones where there is a hell of a lot of variation in terms of the colours that have been pressed. Despite there only being 2 actual official versions, there's multiple kind of like green, opaque, teal, so we won't get into all of those. So technically there's only 2 if you purely count the actual official names and versions and not all the colour variation. So you have the standard edition, which is this kind of gorgeous green colour, and this is just the deluxe edition of Evermore with 17 tracks. And then you have the Target edition of Evermore, and unfortunately this does follow in Folklore's suit and has that ugly Target red, and similarly to standard is just the 17 tracks deluxe version of Evermore. But I remember when it was announced, I just thought that's the ugliest thing ever. It doesn't suit. Unlike the green, which really suits.
Luckily the green
Evermore
is perfect, so thank God for that.
Yes.
But yeah, poor Evermore, as always, getting the short end of the stick, just getting its, green and a red one, and being like, well, that's that for you.
It is, yeah.
So now we are entering into the Taylor's version releases. And first up, obviously, chronologically, we had Fearless. For Fearless, we have a standard edition, which this one for me is perfection. This is the colour of Fearless for me. So,
yes,
yeah.
Gorgeous gold.
Gold, yeah. And luckily we had that, because the only other one we have is, again, a Target exclusive. So, of course, what colour is it going to be? Red.
Red.
Yeah, and it is very bright red, as they all are. Obviously this is the Taylor's version, so it includes all of those Taylor's version tracks. Glad we got a good standard, because again, it's just, I don't know, it's just so annoying. Like, why would you want a red one instead of a gold one? Like, why would you do that?
It's weird. The contract must have had something to do that they had to be red for Target. I just don't know why.
Because at this point there is no like exclusive tracks on there.
No. It was just an ugly colour, but they weren't even interesting colours to make someone want.
No, it's just red.
Like, very.
Don't get me wrong, if red is your favourite colour, you are in luck. Yeah. You are in luck with Taylor's vinyl.
So next, chronologically, is Red Taylor's version, and this has 2 editions as well. The standard version, which is unfortunately just a standard black, and this is obviously the full track list of the Taylor's version of Red. But similarly to the previous releases, there's also a Target edition, which is red and for once actually goes with the release. I remember at the time before it was announced, everyone was like, surely
well,
we're gonna have a red.
Thank God for that. Can you imagine?
Like blue.
Yeah, if it was suddenly there was like, actually, let's not do that. Which
we're gonna do like a swirly pink.
With Taylor, who knows, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but luckily,
exactly.
This one, now this makes sense. This is a collector's item. This is one that you would want to snap up.
This is the one you want. Out of the 2, if you're going to get any Taylor's versions of Red, you want the Target one, because
it
that
makes
one is
sense.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Going back, because we are following Taylor's chronologic releases, so going back now to main discography, next up we have Midnights. And for Midnights, of course, this is something that you hinted towards before, Cameron, where you said, these were like exclusive versions, 24 hours. You can still get them nowadays, so that's a positive thing. But firstly, we had the 4 different editions, which was the Moonstone Blue marbled vinyl, the Jade Green marbled, the Blood Moon marbled, and the Mahogany marbled. Beautiful editions, all of them, to be honest with you. Absolutely stunning. They looked great. The colours, perfect.
Probably a favourite is Jade Green, I'd say.
Okay.
Out of them, I really love that green. I think it's really gorgeous.
Yes, I think it turned out really, really nice. But to be honest, I remember seeing photos from, when people were getting their vinyl, and honestly, they all looked really, really nice, I have to say. My favourite hasn't been mentioned yet, so we will mention that in just a second. But all of these as well, of course, have different album art, so that's another interesting difference, at least. which is, another way. Also, again, these were very interactive because, as Taylor explained, back in the Midnights era, when you flip them over and put them all together, they did create a clock. On Taylor's store at the same time, they were selling like specific shelves that you could put up with a little clock.
Yes.
Kind of.
You could make a clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was such a fun bit of merch. I think it was such a great concept. Again, I love a gimmick, and this really worked for Midnights, and I think that's why I love them so much. Here we have a break in the Target exclusive contract, and thank God for that, because this one, perfect. Can you imagine if this was just red? I would have cried.
Christ.
But it's not. We have this time a lavender vinyl for the Target exclusive. This was the lavender version. It looks absolutely brilliant. I love it. This one is my favorite. It's my favorite color variant for Midnights, to be honest with you.
It is gorgeous. It is a really, really nice one. And even though it was unlike the other Target editions for Folklore, Evermore, Fearless Taylor's version and Red Taylor's version, which were exclusively Target. That's the only place you could buy them. You could not buy them anywhere internationally unless someone shipped them over to you. Mm-hmm. The lavender version was actually available internationally in other stores like HMV, for example, so you can get that internationally, which was really, really cool as well, that it wasn't region locked to the States in Target.
There's one more version, and this one is one of those interesting kind of situations that we were speaking about before, because this is basically a printing that kind of went a bit awry, right? Because people were noticing that there was like a darker coloration, but it was so different to the original lavender edition, which was very, supposed to be very pastel. And so Taylor Nation, I think, and Taylor thought with a very business savvy mind and said, oh no, this is the Love Potion edition. And again, it's basically Midnights once again, and this time the purple is much a deeper color instead of a lavender color.
Pinky. Yeah, it was a bit cheeky really, because with things like Evermore, where we'd have there's like 5 or 6 different kind of color variations within that standard green, and fans have kind of been leaning into that and collecting them. And Fearless also had a similar situation, Fearless Taylor's version, with these like very different variations in the gold and how swirly the gold was, or how gold the gold was, which just seems ridiculous. But this happened with Midnights, and also happened with the standard Moonstone. There was slight variations in that, where some were a bit duller and some were a bit brighter, whereas like you said, for this lavender one, it was distinctly pinker.
It was completely different, to be honest.
So they resold it as a totally new kind of vinyl, which was a bit cheeky because they didn't even put like a hype sticker on it.
No, they were just like, this is the Love Potion, and that is that.
They just sent you that version that was pressed in a different pressing plant and basically had different colours of plastic, a slight different colour of plastic. So technically, unlike all the other ones that we've kind of hinted towards, this is technically a different vinyl variant, as it was sold as being one that was different from the Target edition. So next, chronologically, Taylor obviously released her version of Speak Now, and her version actually had, for once, it seemed like they were kind of going out with a variety of different pressings rather than just, the standard and a Target. So we had 3 really interesting and unique versions for Speak Now, and there was the Violet edition, and this is obviously just all of them are just the entire Taylor's version tracklist of Speak Now. But anyways, we had the Violet version, the Orchid version, and the Target edition, which was the Lilac. And similarly to the Lavender edition of Midnights, even though it was Target only exclusive in the States, it was actually available internationally in other stores. And I think all of these perfectly suit Speak Now.
Oh, they're great. They're amazing. They're really well done.
I think my favourite is the Orchid, but I think all of them
honestly they're just so good. They're just such beautiful colours. They just do fit Speak Now so much. I really like Lilac, to be honest. It is a very nice colour, but all of them really beautiful additions. Again, I saw lots of photos and they came out so nice. So I'm glad that Speak Now had its little moment, because it didn't have much of a moment, but it had its little moment. At least it had vinyl variants, so there you go. After Speak Now, we of course got 1989 Taylor's version, and here she kind of like did a similar thing that she'd done with Midnights, to be honest. It quite very much followed suit with the 4 different vinyl editions. These are a little bit more exclusive than the Midnights ones were, at least internationally. They're a bit harder to get your hands on, but they are around still. Yeah. 4 colours, once again: crystal blue, rose pink, aquamarine green, and sunrise yellow. I really love these colours. For 1989, they really do suit. Especially that standard one, I think is really nice. a nice blue as well.
Yeah, that blue is really, really, really cool. And I love the rose pink edition. I also purchased that one alongside the standard just because it reminded me of the Rolling Stone magazine photo shoot.
Yep.
But no, they were all really, really cool. And like you said, they lean into the way that Midnight's was marketed and sold, encouraging you to collect them all, because when you turn them over, they had 1989, and they also sold like a little kind of strip shelf where you could slide them together so that they all sit together as a 4. So yeah, no, these were definitely sold like that, but unfortunately there was then another version that they came out with.
Yes, then finally we also have the Tangerine edition, and this is the Target exclusive edition. Again, they didn't go with red, thank God for that, because this is a great edition. I absolutely love it. And this one is very special because this is the only edition of 1989 that has Sweeter Than Fiction on it.
Yes, it's the only way currently, as of recording.
Yes. Yeah, no streaming, no CD.
Version. No streaming, nothing.
Yeah.
No. This version, if you are going to get any 1989,
this is the one.
Get this one
because of exactly
an extra track. And again, even similarly with Midnight's and Speak Now Taylor's version, even though it is Target exclusive in the States, it is available
widely
in other stores internationally. But no, this one is really, really cool. I really like the colour as well. I think it does actually suit 1989. It's kind of slightly more beigey than orange, personally.
I quite like it. Yeah, I really like the idea. It also kind of like suits
it's
because
a standard cover as well.
Yeah, it suits because it looks a bit like sunsetty kind of on the beach. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So next we have the Tortured Poets department, and this one again is a bit of a minefield, so bear with. So we have the standard edition, which was the Ghost White, and this one is the standard edition of TTPD with 16 tracks plus the bonus track, the manuscript. Alongside that, we also have the Phantom Clear edition, and this is also the standard edition of TTPD with 16 tracks, and then the bonus track, the manuscript. It has the same cover as the Ghost White. However, this one was sold as the Target edition. Similarly, as mentioned before, it was also available internationally. However, that was the Target version. Alongside that, there was supposedly store exclusives for limited times that are still widely available everywhere, versions, and these were the Parchment Beige, which was the standard edition of TTPD with the bonus track, the Bolter, so it's known as the Bolter variant. There's also the Smoke Grey variant, and this is the standard edition of TTPD with the bonus track, the Albatross, and this is known as the Albatross version, and also the Ink Black version of TTPD with the bonus track, the Black Dog, and again, known as the Black Dog. And these are still quite widely available. Out of these 5 variants, personally, my favourite, even though I don't actually have it, is actually the Black Dog.
So many people, so many people that say to me how much they love that cover of the Black Dog, and that's why they quite like it for the Tortured Poets department. I don't know, I think my favourite would probably be the Target exclusive one. The
Phantom I actually
Clear.
have that one. I have the Phantom Clear.
I remember. I quite like that one. I think it's, I don't know, I like the little reference to phantoms, dancing phantoms on the terrace. I like it. I like it for TTPD. Yeah.
But then interestingly, as we were kind of saying, obviously the anthology cover was actually the cover that was used on the Black Dog. That for streaming, that was the cover on the anthology, which confused a lot of people. I remember some people being confused, being like, so is this the anthology? And it's like, no, it only has one of the anthology tracks.
Right.
Obviously, more recently, literally at the end of last year, we got the Tortured Poets department, the anthology on vinyl, and this is obviously the anthology edition of TTPD with 35 tracks, including 4 bonus acoustic songs, and this has a stunning, probably one of my favourite covers of TTPD, cover of Taylor, and this is kind of across 4 vinyl and is really, really cool vinyl. Some's like a gold, some's smoky, some's more clear. I think this is really, really well thought out pressing. I think all of the TTPD pressings were really well thought out, even from CD right up to vinyl, because the vinyl were these gorgeous books. They had these like gorgeous, very thick stock card inside, almost like the lyric booklet but in large and inside the vinyl. And the anthology, I felt, also was very high quality with the vinyl pressings, and it also comes with like a little kind of art cardy poster. So personally, if you were going to buy Tortured Poets and kind of wanted basically the whole thing, and only one,
it's the anthology.
I would go for the anthology.
100%. It's such a good edition.
I think if your favourite song is either the Albatross, the Bolter, or the Black Dog, and you don't like any of the other anthology songs, then obviously go for those. But I think lots of fans were a little bit annoyed when the anthology was finally released, because people had kind of purchased stuff that was now kind of obsolete, really, because they weren't the full version. But I suppose now it's nice that at least we have that option, whereas Midnight's, there is no...
Oh, there's no ultimate edition
released.
With the whole all-nighter.
With everything. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that is the versions of TTBD. And obviously, one of the reasons for this episode is that TTBD is about to get another treatment in terms of vinyl releases, and for Record Store Day this year, it's getting a 7-inch single for Fortnite, and side A features obviously just the standard album studio version of Fortnite with Post Malone, and the B-side features the Bloodish remix. And it will be available on Record Store Day. So anyone trying for that, best of luck. Hopefully, similarly with previous years, they will press large quantities. But Record Store Day, I know, is kind of quite stressful. Personally, I find it very stressful having to queue and get in early and not know if you're going to get it or not.
Yeah. Are you going to be
but when
attempting?
You do get it, it's quite rewarding.
Are you going to be attempting to get this one?
Hopefully, yes. I will attempt. I'm not going to cry if I don't get it, but I think, I'll definitely give it a go. It's just quite fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you do get it, it is like winning a prize. You're almost like, oh, thank God for that. So no, I'll definitely be attempting to get it. And like I said, best of luck to anyone that is trying to get it. Okay, so we've now come to the end of discussing all things Taylor Swift vinyl. And as we said, even though this list may seem long, when you get into different versions, it's even longer, because there's also really cool Chinese editions of all of these that come in like plastic sleeves with like the album printed on the back, and they come with little vinyl like gloves, little mitts. There's all sorts of really, really cool versions, and I definitely check those out. But I hope that this episode's been somewhat informative and interesting, and if you're either currently a vinyl collector, it's hopefully opened your eyes to some editions maybe you didn't know about, or reinforce your knowledge, or if you're not one, has given you some inspiration and maybe more knowledge on this area. Lisa, what would you say out of all of the ones we've discussed, if you could have one, what do you think is the ultimate one?
Oh, that's so difficult, because there's so many different ones. Like, the ultimate in terms of exclusivity, I really do think is that red one.
ACM,
the ACM, exclusive for your consideration one, just because of how very specific its purpose was, and how few people probably do have that and have looked after it well. But probably just as, I don't know, my favourite looking, I do really love their Midnights ones. Oh no, Speak Now is beautiful. I think Speak Now has it all, really. Those 3 orchid ones are my favourite aesthetically in terms of colour. Obviously the red one in terms of rarity, and overall, probably my favourite one overall, Folklore Long Pond. Yeah, such a good one. Either that or Lover Hearts. But what about you, Cameron? You are a collector. You have an amazing collection.
Yes.
So...
yeah.
What is like your prized vinyl possession when it comes to Taylor? And what is your one of your ones that you would love from this list that we've given?
So if you didn't know, I do have quite a large Taylor collection. It goes across all sorts of various areas, and if you're interested, then a bit of a self-plug, but follow me on Instagram. My handle is Taylor Swift _CD, where I post all sorts of different merch and have catalogues of stuff. So give it a scroll. There's lots of interesting stuff.
Which I'm sure
post it and look all very aesthetic and nice.
I'm sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, you will be seeing photos from Cameron's Instagram, because those are the ones that we put up for these types of episodes, because they're just absolutely incredible. Those flat lays. Chef's kiss. So yeah, definitely do go check that out if you did find this episode interesting. Yeah.
But I think for me, my favourite out of all the Taylor vinyl that I own is that debut Record Store Day. It's just so gorgeous.
It's just so good for debut. So
debut
good.
Anyway. And yeah, no, I love that. I do love those debut 7-inch singles. My little jukebox vinyls, I think they're just really unique and often not discussed or very widely owned. So I feel a little bit like, a god complex about owning. So those are definitely some of my favourites. I think the Folklore Long Pond is an absolute fave of mine. Being able to get the Love Alive from Paris literally a couple of weeks ago is really, really cool. I can't really pick. It's so hard. I think if I was to pick, though, it would definitely be probably Record Store Day debut, because it's just so cool.
It is really nice. It is. And what about one that you would really love like one that you maybe missed out on?
I think the Red ACM.
Right, yeah. I think it's just so...
Or 1989 Record Store Day.
Yes, yes. It's the one missing.
One piece of the Record Store Day puzzle that I'm missing.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, no, those are definitely my favourites. But let us know your favourites in the comments. We'd love to know what your favourite one is. If you have any Taylor vinyl, let us know what ones you do have. If you have any cool versions, ones that we've mentioned. So yeah, let us know all your thoughts in the comments. And if you did enjoy and are listening/watching over on YouTube, we'd love it if you give this episode a like. And if you're not already, then please subscribe. If you're listening on an audio format only way to listen to this episode, then we'd also love it if you would rate us on Spotify or Apple. And if you're interested in keeping up to date with all things Swiftly Spoken, then make sure to follow us over on Instagram. Our handle is @SwiftlySpokenPodcast. And as ever, we hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll speak to you soon.